When I locked my daughter inside the closet, she was still laughing. She thought it was just a game, a simple game of hide and seek. But who could have imagined that her hiding place would become her prison for the next 20 years? Hey everyone, welcome back to Midnight Static Files. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is there. Don't forget to subscribe now, turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and let's begin. 20 years later, I finally returned to my hometown. I had only one thing in mind. I wanted to give my daughter a proper burial. But the moment I reached the old storage room, I heard something coming from inside the closet. It was her voice, her childish voice. "Dad, you finally found me. Why did you take so long?" 20 years earlier, I had locked my daughter inside that closet and left the village. At the time, my wife and I were preparing for our son's wedding. We went to a fortune teller to choose an auspicious date for the ceremony. But after studying the family's fortune, the old master suddenly became extremely serious. "This date isn't right." I stared at him. "What do you mean?" He looked directly at me. "Do you have another child who is missing?" My heart stopped. I immediately looked at my wife. The fear on her face told me everything. We were thinking the exact same thing. Our daughter. The master continued. "A wedding is supposed to be a celebration of the entire family. Everyone must be present. If someone is missing after the wedding, something terrible could happen." I swallowed hard. "What kind of problem?" He shook his head. "It's better if you don't ask. Even if I told you, you probably wouldn't believe me. But if this wedding isn't completed properly, instead of celebrating a wedding, your family may end up holding a funeral." Then he asked one final question. "Do you have another daughter?" I slowly nodded. The old man's expression changed. "Then that's it. According to my calculations, she is still outside, and she desperately wants to come home. She isn't an ordinary person anymore." I couldn't understand what he was saying. My daughter had been dead for 20 years. How could she possibly want to come home? And what did he mean by saying she wasn't ordinary? The master looked at me seriously. "Go home first. When your entire family is together, come back to me. Then we can choose the wedding date." We had no choice but to leave. When we returned home, my wife's face was filled with fear. "What are we going to do?" she whispered. "We left this place 20 years ago. She's been dead for 20 years. We can't let our son's wedding be ruined because of her. But how are we supposed to bring her home?" I grabbed my hair in frustration. I was terrified, too. The truth was, our son's future depended on this marriage. His fiancée came from a wealthy and powerful family. Getting this marriage arranged had been extremely difficult, and her family was very strict about tradition. They had repeatedly insisted that we consult a master before setting the wedding date. But now everything was being threatened by the daughter we had abandoned 20 years ago. I had to find a solution. Our daughter's name was Xiao Yudi. If she were still alive, she would have been 32 years old that year. When Xiao Yudi was 12, my wife and I decided to leave the village and move to the city. Taking care of 2 children was becoming too difficult. "If we take our son with us, what are we going to do with her?" my wife asked. "She doesn't need to come. We'll leave her here. She can stay in the house, and eventually she'll disappear from our lives." Her words shocked me, but she wasn't joking. There are plenty of girls in this village whose parents abandon them. Some of them are eventually sold to other families. We've already raised her for 12 years. Isn't that enough? I remained silent. Then I made my decision. "Trust me, we'll leave soon." The next day, we started packing. As usual, Xiao Di was running around the house with her little brother. She kept putting toys into the bags, excited about the trip. She had no idea what was about to happen. When the car was getting close, my wife secretly signaled to me. I knew exactly what she wanted me to do. Still, I walked over to my daughter. "Dad, I'm tired. Can we play hide and seek?" "Not now. I still have things to pack." "Please, Dad." "Just one game." I smiled. "Okay." We played for a while. Then my wife gave me another signal. It was time. "Okay, final round. Now you hide and we'll come find you. Make sure you hide really well." My wife leaned close to our daughter and whispered, "Xiao Di, I'll hide you somewhere they will never find you." She took our daughter into the storage room. Neither my wife nor I had ever told anyone about the basement beneath that room. Down there was an old metal cabinet. It was thick, heavy, and almost impossible for a child to open from the inside. When I started counting, my daughter had already climbed inside. My wife brought her into the basement. A few moments later, she came back upstairs alone. I noticed she was carrying a padlock. We both knew what was about to happen. That night, we reported our daughter missing. My wife cried hysterically in front of the police. Nobody suspected us. And just like that, 20 years passed. During those 20 years, we returned to our old family home several times. But my wife and I had an unspoken agreement. Neither of us ever mentioned what happened. Neither of us ever went down into the basement, until our son's wedding forced me to return. I remembered what the master had said. The dead must be buried. Xiaodi was never buried. If she really is still there, I have to bring her body back. I'll bury her in the family cemetery. Then maybe she'll finally rest. And maybe she won't interfere with our son's wedding. My wife nodded. We can't postpone the wedding. She was a burden when she was alive. And now she's causing trouble even after death. We need to bury her as soon as possible. That night, I returned to our old family home. It was a small, old one-story house. The electricity still worked, but I was afraid the neighbors might notice something strange. So I kept the lights off. I entered the storage room with only a flashlight. The moment I stepped inside, something felt wrong. It felt as though several doors were standing open. Cold, damp air brushed against my face. Then suddenly, I heard a loud bang. I nearly dropped my flashlight. I froze. I listened. 1 minute passed, then another. Nothing. Eventually, I convinced myself it must have been rats running around after hearing me enter. So I continued deeper into the basement. Everything looked almost exactly the way it had 20 years earlier. Then my flashlight fell on something in the corner. The old metal cabinet. It was covered in rust. Pieces of peeling paint were scattered across the floor. The old padlock was still hanging from the door, but strangely, there was no smell. After 20 years, I assumed whatever had been inside had completely decomposed. I took a deep breath. I tried to convince myself that I was only imagining things. Then I reached into my pocket for the key, and just as I was about to unlock the cabinet, I heard a child's laughter, a loud, familiar laugh. I jumped and spun around. "Who's there? Come out! Stop trying to scare me!" There was no answer. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. My hands were shaking so badly that I could barely hold the flashlight. I searched the entire room. Nothing. No one was there. Then I noticed something in the corner, a small, shriveled body. I couldn't even tell whether it had once been a cat or a dog. I turned back toward the cabinet. I took a deep breath. "I'm just scared. That's all." The voice was probably in my head. I pulled the key out again and slowly began unlocking the door. Then I heard a voice. "Dad? You're here! I've been waiting for you!" My blood ran cold. The voice was unmistakable. It was Xiaodi. "Dad, you finally found me! I must have hidden really well this time." I couldn't move. This couldn't be happening. My daughter had been dead for 20 years, or at least that's what I believed. "Dad, why aren't you answering me? Open the door." How could this be possible? A human being couldn't survive inside a locked metal cabinet for 20 years. Not without food, not without water. So what exactly was inside? "Dad, please let me out. I don't want to play anymore." "Open the door!" I couldn't take it anymore. I stumbled backward and crawled out of the basement. I was so terrified that I didn't even dare pick up the keys I'd dropped. When I got home, I told my wife everything. But her first reaction wasn't fear. It was disbelief. "You're drunk. Are you seriously telling me Xiao Yudi is still alive? Or are you making up some ghost story because you don't want to bury her? Stop trying to scare me. How could something like this even be possible?" I kept telling her I wasn't lying, but she refused to believe me. Finally, she stormed out of the house. A few minutes later, our son's future in-laws called. They wanted to know how the wedding preparations were going. They also asked whether we had already chosen an auspicious wedding date. Their family was wealthy and deeply respected tradition. I couldn't tell them the truth, so I lied. I told them my wife had suddenly become sick. I promised that within 2 or 3 days, I would consult the master again and finalize the wedding date. After hanging up, I opened several cans of beer. I wanted to drown my fear in alcohol. But even after drinking several cans, I couldn't stop thinking about the cabinet. What was inside? If it was a human being, how could anyone survive inside that cabinet for 20 years? And if it was a ghost, how could it still be trapped inside? Those questions kept running through my mind. Eventually, I fell asleep. Then suddenly, "Wake up! Wake up! Dad! I really heard her!" I opened my eyes. My wife was standing over me. No, I didn't just hear her. I opened the cabinet. My heart sank. "Who told you to open it? What did you see inside?" She stared at me. Then she whispered, "It followed me home." And that's when I realized whatever was inside that cabinet wasn't trapped there anymore.